Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's a great way to celebrate Red Ribbon Week, and we have a great speaker here for you today. And to start this off, we're going to ask that our Spanish translator please come on and tell them about in a little bit, there's going to be a globe that shows up that will allow you to hear this presentation in 2 different languages. So we'll start with Shayla, would you start?
Buenas noches, gracias a todos por estar aquí presentes. En unos minutos se aparecerá un globo y podrán seleccionar el idioma español para poder recibir los servicios de interpretación. Gracias.
Hi, Jill, I couldn't hear you.
Yoon, can you go ahead and tell folks that in a little bit, a globe is going to show up at the bottom of the screen, and they can, if they want Korean translation, they can select the globe and select their language.
예, 한국어 통역을 원하시면 밑에 나오는 동그란 칸을 눌러주시면 됩니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. We're going to get started soon.
바로 시작하겠습니다.
Thank you. You see the globe now, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike Chavez from Orange County Department of Education.
All right, so good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Chavez with the Orange County Department of Education. I'm really delighted to be here this morning, I'm sorry, this evening to give you this presentation. I work for the Orange County Department of Education, and I'm part of a team that we provide drug prevention services for our districts and schools throughout the county. So for the most part, I work with students in the classroom, but I also give presentations like this for parents and also presentations for teachers. That way we're all aware of the current drug trends. That way we can help our children give back the facts to our children about the dangers and risk of these substances. And because unfortunately, and I'll say this later on in the presentation, if the children don't learn the facts from us, they're gonna get misinformation on the streets, on videos, on social media, on friends and family that are not the most positive influence for our children. And that's why the title of our presentation is actually called Prevention, It Starts With You. Because a ton of research, a lot of experts say that children that learn the risk of and dangers of drugs and alcohol from their own parents, these children are less likely to get involved with drugs and alcohol. So that's why you as a parent are extremely important to help your children or your child not get involved with drugs and alcohol. All right, so these are some of the topics that we will cover this evening. Now, it is going to be a lot of information, but at the very end, I am going to provide you and the district with a link where you'll be able to get this presentation in English, Spanish, or Korean. All right, and it's going to be a PDF file. You can download it, you can save it, you can share it, you can print it, do whatever you'd like with this presentation, okay? Now, throughout the presentation, when I use the word parents, I'm not just referring to the biological parents of the child, but I'm referring also to possible foster parents, adoptive parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, anybody that's in charge of the well-being of the child. So here's my first question. At what age do you think the human brain is fully developed? Just for you to reflect. If there are people online in the chat, if you like, you don't have to, but if you'd like, you can put your answer in the chat. At what age is the human brain fully developed? And the answer is 25 on average. The human brain is not fully developed until a person reaches the age of 25. For some people, it could be as early as 24. For other people, as late as 26, even all the way up to 27. And the last area of the brain to develop is called the prefrontal cortex. And in the picture that you see up here, it's represented in the pink area. So little kids and teenagers, they already have the prefrontal cortex, but it's not functioning at full capacity, and it's not yet fully developed. And as you can see, once the prefrontal cortex starts functioning, it'll help us control our impulses as well as our emotions. It's our decision making. It helps us make good decisions using logic. It helps us think of future consequences when we have to make a decision. Problem solving, voice of reason. That's why for teenagers, since the prefrontal cortex is not functioning at full capacity, they have a hard time making hard decisions. Most of their decisions are based on emotion instead of logic. Okay, that's why they tend to make a lot of mistakes, tend to take a lot of risk, because some of them have a hard time of thinking of future consequences. And that's why us as parents, we have to be patient with our teenagers and guide them and just remind them, you have to make good decisions, okay? Now, obviously this being a drug prevention program, as you can imagine, if a teenager starts using drugs and alcohol in that age, the drugs and alcohol is going to damage the development of the prefrontal cortex, the function of the prefrontal cortex, and other areas of the brain. Other things that are happening in the teenage brain. The body, including the brain, are made up of cells. The brain cells, they have a special name called neurons. And the neurons, they communicate by forming connections with other neurons. Okay? And teenagers and little kids, as you can see, we're using this analogy of the freeways, right? There's a lot of intersections, which means teenagers have way too many connections in the brain. So when they're learning something, the information takes a little bit of time to get from one part of the brain to the other. But as one gets older and they learn from life experiences, the brain does an amazing thing where it starts getting rid of unnecessary connections. And what remains are the important connections that the brain thinks it needs. That way, when we're adults, the information in our brain travels a lot faster, a lot smoother, and a straighter path. But once again, since the teenage brain is still developing, if they start using drugs and alcohol, it'll mess up this process, it'll ruin this process, which means that their brain will not be able to form the connections that it needs as they become adults. And lastly, since their brain is still developing, they are going to get addicted to the drugs a lot faster than an adult. Okay? An adult can still get addicted to a drug if we abuse, but it'll take us a little bit longer compared to a teen brain. A teenager can get addicted to a drug in a matter of months or weeks in some rare cases. Okay? And that's why, for example, in the state of California, the legal age for alcohol, marijuana, tobacco, nicotine, and vapes, it's all 21. Okay? Because if a young person waits to use these substances at the age of 21, the chances of them becoming addicted decrease. Okay, risk factors. So one big risk factor is peer pressure. I always share that I am 40 years old and I still get pressured from friends, from family. If you're Hispanic or Latino like me, from the compadres. Come on, Mike, have another beer. It's open, it's nice and cold. Here, we're gonna leave it here for you. Don't let it get warm, right? But me as an adult, I can resist that kind of pressure, no problem. But if your child has never learned the skills to resist that kind of pressure, if they ever are pressured, do you think they'll be able to refuse that pressure, right? And if the answer is no, then that's a huge risk for your child. And also, one last thing I want you to know about peer pressure. I want you to understand that pressure, for the most part, comes from family members, not friends, family members. Before I did this job, I thought that the majority of the pressure came from the streets, from friends at school, but no, the majority of the pressure, the highest percentage is from a family member. Older brothers and sisters, cousins, what have you. Be aware of that. Lack of supervision. This just means that sometimes we as parents were very busy. My parents, they had to work 2 jobs. And sometimes from that second job, they didn't get home until 11, 12 o'clock at night. And for my brothers and I, that was a huge risk because we could, after school, easily we could have hung out on the streets, gone to places where our parents did not allow us without our parents knowing, right? Getting into all kinds of trouble. Social media. This should come to no surprise that social media is a big risk for our teenagers because what occurs in social media is companies like alcohol companies, vaping companies, and now cannabis companies. What they do is they pay influencers to take pictures of themselves using these products and upload them onto their social media accounts. And if they're a popular influencer and teenagers are following them, they're going to be exposed to these images. And for teenagers, it's going to build curiosity, temptation, and so on. So if your children have social media, just be vigilant, monitor your child's social media account. Lack of school connectedness. Research shows that if a child does not feel connected to the community and to the school, they're at a greater chance to get involved with drugs and alcohol. So we as parents, we have to pay attention, be attentive, work with the schools to ensure that our kids feel connected to the school, to the community, so that way they can feel secure when they're at school, okay? And then lastly, easy access. Unfortunately, nowadays, it's very easy for a young person, a teenager, to get a hold of a substance if they wanted to. For example, alcohol is all over the place. Supermarkets, liquor stores, gas stations, convenience stores like 7-Eleven, right? Sometimes we as adults have alcohol in our very own homes, right? I always share that my own dad, he had his liquor bottles next to the cereal in the kitchen. So for my brothers and I, once again, if my parents were working late, that was a huge risk for my brothers and I, because we could have easily taken my dad's bottles, had a drink, try the alcohol, and then just add water, right? So the level would go back to where my dad had it. I have family members that when I go to their homes, I open up the fridge and they have more beer in the fridge than milk or Capri Suns for the kids. Yeah, right? And I'm not saying that your kids are going to take their alcohol, but what if you invite family over, it's your nieces or your nephews, right? Grandchildren that maybe are the ones taking easy access for them. One last thing about easy access. I got this in the mail last week. You cannot see it, but online cannabis delivery. You got it too? Thank you. So easy access, things like social media, Snapchat. Teens tell us that they can order vapes off of Snapchat. I don't know if teens could get vapes off of Snapchat or cannabis or marijuana off of Snapchat, right? But easy access. And if at the end, if you want to come up and see it, you're more than welcome to come up and see it. For people online, I'll hold it here in the camera, right, really quickly. So huge risk. Other risk factors, how harmful they think the drugs are. And I'll show you in the next slide, there's a graph. If a child thinks that the drugs are not harmful, they're more likely, that's the risk for them and they're more likely to want to try it. What might their friends think? But more importantly, what might their family think? If a teenager has the misunderstanding that my parents, when I drink alcohol, for example, they don't make a big deal, they're going to repeat that negative behavior in other places when the parents are not around. To have a good time, like I said, the prefrontal cortex for teenagers is not fully developed. So sometimes for some of them, they're either bored or they haven't learned the risk. And if somebody presents a vape, alcohol or whatever, they might be more inclined to use or drink because of the pressure, and they haven't learned the risk. And then lastly, to deal with problems. In my line of work, I've come across junior high and high school students that use drugs. It's a small percentage, it's no big secret. Yes, they use some of them, a small percentage of them use drugs. And what I've personally noticed of these teenagers that use drugs, they use drugs for one of four reasons. The majority are anxious, depressed, stressed out, and have low self-esteem. And some of these young people, they'll suffer one, two, or all four of these conditions at the same time. And for the most part, they're self-medicating with marijuana, with cannabis. Okay. These are the results of a survey. It's called the California Healthy Kids Survey. And this survey is administered in the entire state of California for junior high and high school students. It's an anonymous survey. And then at the end, obviously the parents have to give permission, right, for the child to take the survey. The results that you see are from the school year 17 through 2019. I apologize that the data is a little bit old. It's because the pandemic last year ruined. It's done on the 18th, on the 20th, 22nd, 2022nd. So the pandemic ruined the administration of the survey. But anyway, it has over 100 questions. One of the sections is on drug use. And here are the results of 4 of those questions from that survey. As you can see, the color black represents marijuana. Yellow represents vapes or e-cigs, electronic cigarettes. And the blue represents alcohol. So the first question is, how easy is it for you to obtain these drugs? And the students that reported that it's easy or fairly easy to obtain, you see the percentages right there. So I forgot to mention, these students were 11th grade students from Orange County, our very own county. So 62% of the students reported that they find it easy or fairly easy to get a hold of marijuana and alcohol. 67% of these same students reported that it's easy or fairly easy to get a hold of vapes. Perceived harm. The question was, how harmful do you think these drugs are from occasional use? And the students that reported that little to no harm, there are the percentages. So 42% of the students reported that they think that marijuana and alcohol use cause little to no harm. So a few things that we can tell, right away we can tell from this data. You can see alcohol and marijuana, the percentages are identical at 62% and at 42%. And what that tells us at the Department of Education is that unfortunately for teenagers, almost half of the marijuana is becoming as normal as alcohol. And that's a huge risk for young people, right? And once again, almost half of the students think that marijuana and alcohol cause little to no harm, right? Next, the students that have tried. So the question was, have you tried any of these substances at least once in your lifetime? And the ones that reported yes, here are the percentages. So 23% reported using marijuana at least once in their life, 26% reported using vapes at least once in their life, and 31% reported using alcohol at least once in their life. And then lastly, current users. These are the students that reported using the drug in the past 30 days. So they are considered current users. So 12% currently use marijuana, 13% currently use vapes, and 14% currently use alcohol. So as you can see from the results of the last 2 questions, or the data, alcohol is the highest percentage because once again, it's out of all the substances, it's the easiest to get. It can be in our homes, it's supermarkets, and so on, right? Easy access. Now, before I go any further, we always clarify that me personally, we don't have anything wrong with adults using these substances if they choose to, right? I'm here this evening because I don't want our students and our children using these substances at an early age, becoming addicted, ruining their health and their brain development, okay? So I just want, because marijuana, for example, some of the research that's out there, yeah, it can have potential use for people that need it, that have cancer or are terminally ill, right, other illnesses. And I personally don't have anything against that. I'm just here because, once again, I don't want our children using these, children that are healthy, right, that are still developing and have many more years to go. Anyway, alcohol. I want to talk about this trend that's currently happening, and it's with the hard seltzer drinks. Hard seltzer drinks, like Truly, White Claw, right? So it's like a sparkling water. The only difference is it has a flavor and it contains alcohol. The examples of the flavors that are up here are strawberry lemon, mango, black cherry, lime, apple, fruit punch, peach, right? And it's these flavors that are extremely, extremely attractive or appealing to young adults and teenagers. And if you've ever had one of these, you know, for the most part, when you drink it, you cannot taste the alcohol. All you taste is the wonderful flavor. And sometimes people drink too much because they don't taste the alcohol, right? And teens will do the same exact thing. They'll drink it as if it's an apple juice, because once again, they cannot taste the alcohol flavor. All they taste, and that's a huge risk. And the other risk, as you can already tell, is the design of the cans. How these alcohol companies design the cans in a way that can sometimes people can confuse them with non-alcoholic beverages. Look at the Four Locos and compare it to the Monster energy drinks. Same exact thin and tall can. And then in this case, identical colors, green, red, and orange. And I've had parents in the past tell me after the presentation, Mike, I've seen my kid with the Four Locos. I didn't do much because I thought it was an energy drink, right? So that's why we as parents have to be well aware. And like I said, we're parents, but we're also aunts and uncles. We might be grandparents. We might have friends, neighbors with children. You know, we gotta help each other out, making sure that our kids are not drinking or consuming alcohol or any other substance. Really quickly, just some other risk. Obviously, legal problems for the teenager if they're caught drinking, but also legal problems for the parents or any adult that provided the alcohol for the child. It should come to no surprise that when a teenager starts drinking alcohol, it's going to cause a lot of mental function issues like memory loss, motivation. It'll affect motivation, concentration, and other things that I will mention more later on. I want to skip down to this one, death from alcohol poisoning. Because once again, if you remember the data that I showed you, almost half of the kids think that alcohol is not harmful. So they might see the adults in their families drink too much, having a good time with alcohol at family parties or on the weekends or whatever. And teenagers they think that's normal. And when they go to their friends' parties and things like that, they think they can drink the same. But no, they drink too much. Their young bodies cannot process alcohol like an adult body. And then which can lead to alcohol poisoning, which a person can die from alcohol poisoning. It's pretty much an alcohol overdose. So alcohol is the most commonly used and misused drugs amongst young people for the reasons that we just discussed, that they think alcohol is not harmful. It's one of the easiest substances to get a hold of. All right. So this is my coworker's desk, a picture of her desk, and you see a bunch of office supplies. But in this picture, there are electronic cigarettes. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to see how many electronic cigarettes you can spot, okay? How many electronic cigarettes you can spot? People that are online on Zoom, if you want to put your response in the chat, you're more than welcome. You don't have to if you don't want to. Or you're more than welcome. In the Q&A? Oh, in the Q&A? Okay, if you would like to respond in the Q&A, feel free to do so as well. Otherwise, here we go. Well, actually, anybody in here in the audience brave enough? Anybody like to share? How many did you spot? Nobody? 7? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else? No, that's okay. All right, here we go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 5 electronic cigarettes. So the first risk that I would like to talk about is the size of these devices. They're very small, as you can see, compared to the other items in the picture, which makes them they can be easily hidden in the pockets, in a purse, in a backpack, in a bedroom, in a car, if the teenager already drives. The second risk is that the actual design of these devices, that they are designed in a way where they resemble everyday items like school supplies and blend in, get mixed up with office supplies in this case, right? You see this electronic cigarette? Look, and the pencil holder, it looks like a pen or a marker. This one's known as a vape pen. Look at this electronic cigarette connected to the laptop. It looks like a USB flash drive or a Wi-Fi hotspot router, right? This one, maybe like a whiteout, right? These other ones, maybe, I don't know what my coworker has here. I think it's the alarm to her car or somebody else's key alarm. But you know, these items resemble all that stuff. So now the reason we have these electronic cigarettes in this picture on purpose is because these are the most commonly found among teens that use these devices. They're the most popular types. There are other types of electronic cigarettes, but once again, it's this category in the middle that's the most popular among teens because they're the most affordable, the cheapest types of electronic cigarettes. Now, the trend that I just went over on alcohol is also happening with the electronic cigarettes. Electronic cigarettes, for the most part, can be filled, or cartridges are sold that are pre-filled with a liquid that contains nicotine. And in English, or for the translator, sorry, this liquid or liquid nicotine is known as vape juice, e-juice, or e-liquids. It's all the same thing. It's a liquid that contains nicotine and a flavoring. And nicotine is a chemical that is naturally produced in the tobacco plant and is found in tobacco products. But nicotine for human beings is a super addictive chemical. Now, more risks. So I think I'm on the third risk. As you can already see, the flavors that these vape juices come in. Examples up here are apple, candy, and bubblegum. But there's a lot of flavors being sold online, different fruits, desserts, cereals, sodas or soft drinks, chocolates, anything you can imagine, cappuccinos, lattes, and so on. And it's these flavors that is extremely, extremely appealing to young people. When people are vaping these and they release the aerosol, it smells very nice too, very pleasant. almost like a Victoria's Secret lotion or a Bath Body Works lotion, like the cucumber lemon, or that's sweet, that appealing. The other risk, similar to the alcohol containers, is look at how these vaping companies design the packaging and the labels for their vape juice. Look at which they mimic regular food items. So you look at the Mott's gummies that the kids love, but look at this company. Instead of an M and an O, they put a W and an A. Look at this label. Looks exactly identical to the bubblegum label over here. And once again, if teachers and parents are not aware of this trend, at a quick glance, right, we might confuse it for some kind of sweet or candy, right? Now, electronic cigarettes or vapes, what the person inhales and then releases, it's an aerosol. This industry was very clever to use the word vapor because it misled people to think that it was vapor just like water vapor. And that's where they get the names vapes, right? But it's not a vapor, it's an aerosol, because as you can see from this graphic, the aerosol contains ultrafine particles that can damage lung tissue, volatile organic compounds, which can harm the body, cancer-causing chemicals known as carcinogens, which cause cancer, metals, which at high levels can poison the body, and of course, nicotine, the addictive chemical. So this is just a recap. Electronic cigarettes, once again, can be easily concealed. These contain high levels of nicotine. The Juul device, the way this works is the device has pre-filled cartridges, and Juul, the Juul company, on their website, they claimed that one of these cartridges contained the same amount of nicotine as a pack of cigarettes, which would be 20 cigarettes. That's what they used to claim. Stanford University, they've been doing studies on this company and all their products, and they've come out and said, no, one of these cartridges can contain the same amount of nicotine of 2 packs of cigarettes, which now we're talking 40 cigarettes. And I've heard stories from teenagers when we go out to schools that some of them will consume or have consumed 2 of these a day. So if you believe Juul or Stanford, I believe Stanford. So if you do the math based on Stanford's calculations, if these teenagers are using 2 of these a day, now they're putting in the equivalent amount of nicotine compared to 80 cigarettes, 80. And that's 4 packs of cigarettes a day. So can you imagine all that nicotine, not only in their bodies, but what's it doing to the teenage developing brain, right? Not good. I don't know if people online can see. I'm holding up the Juul device, very small. Here's the cartridge. You can see very small cartridge. Now, the final risk of electronic cigarettes is that people nowadays can consume marijuana. And the risk is for obviously our teenagers, right? So here's the Juul device once again, but now instead of the cartridge being filled with the vape juice or the liquid nicotine, it's pre-filled with concentrated THC. So the marijuana plant naturally produces over 400 chemicals. And one of those chemicals, it goes by THC. And it's that sole chemical that gets people high when they use marijuana. So somebody, years back, some people discovered a process where they can extract the THC from the plant. They process it, and what they manufacture or produce is concentrated THC or concentrated marijuana, same thing. And as you can see, the Juul device, once again, if you remember the vape pen that was in the pencil holder, the electronic cigarette that was in the pencil holder, that's the kind of cartridge that will attach to that electronic cigarette. Here it is. For those of you that are here at the end, you can come up and take pictures if you'd like. We clean these every time with Clorox wipes. Now, the electronic cigarette, I don't know if you can see, the oil's right here up on the side. And if I keep holding it like this, by the end, it'll slowly move down. Obviously, the people on home cannot see. I don't know if they can see. It's a little bit dark, that's okay. I'll put it right here. And this, now, there's many different forms of concentrated THC. This form in here, it's considered a honey butane oil. So it's kind of like the honey or an oil. And this is one of the most popular forms among teenagers that use the substance. Here are other forms of marijuana, especially concentrated marijuana, the crumble, the shatter, wax. That's another popular form of concentrated THC that is popular among teenagers that use this substance. The wax has the consistency of a Vaseline or Vicks Vapor Rub or lip balm. Edibles, these are just foods that are infused with marijuana, with THC. Most of these people can sometimes make edibles at home, but for the most part, like the candies and the gummies, cookies, cereals, sodas, chocolates with THC are sold at dispensaries, right? And the risk for teenagers of edibles is that edibles, the amount of THC cannot be measured. Sometimes, even at the dispensaries, they'll say, for example, maybe 10 milligrams of THC, but when tested, it's not always 10 milligrams. It could be less or it could be more. And if you've ever seen these labels of these foods, it'll say only eat one cookie, for example. But when people vape or smoke marijuana, they can feel the effects in less than 2 minutes because the THC goes into the lungs, then into the blood, and then into the brain. When people eat edibles with THC, it's processed different. It goes into the stomach. It takes 30 to 45 minutes for the stomach to digest the edible. Then it probably goes to the liver, into the blood, and then to the brain. So it can take up to an hour for the person to feel high from the THC. But for teenagers, since they're very impatient, they eat a cookie. They've been waiting for 10 minutes. They're like, I'm not getting high. What do? They're going to eat a second cookie. 20 minutes go by. They're still not feeling high. They eat a third cookie. And 40 minutes go by. The stomach finally digests those cookies. It processes the THC. And boom, the THC hits them, has a really strong negative effect. And THC can cause an overdose. And the THC or marijuana overdose, the symptoms are a lot of vomiting, seizures, and paranoia, okay? Nobody has ever died from a marijuana overdose, which I guess is a good thing. But marijuana does cause an overdose, and those are the 3 symptoms. All right. So I know on here on the slide, it says marijuana, but when it comes to nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, or any other street drug like heroin, cocaine, all these drugs are gonna have the same negative effect on teenagers. It's gonna affect areas of the brain responsible for memory, attention, learning, concentration, perception, judgment of speed and time, mood, motivation. All these drugs are also going to lead to mental health issues like depression, anxiety, paranoia. But specifically for marijuana, there's research that shows that for some people that abuse marijuana, they will develop schizophrenia. And like I mentioned in the beginning, adults can still get addicted to drugs if we abuse, but it'll take us a little bit longer to become addicted compared to a teenage brain. So when we're talking about marijuana, 9% of adults will become addicted to marijuana, and 17% of teenagers will become addicted to marijuana. And as you can see, the number nearly doubles because once again, a teenage brain is more sensitive and they will get addicted to the drugs a lot quicker. Sorry, I will skip all this. Oh, they did. Okay. Prescription drugs. There are 3 major categories of prescription drugs. Opioids, which are used to kill pain or painkillers, stimulants, and then depressants. Stimulants for a normal person, a quote unquote normal person, it'll wake them up as if they had cocaine or caffeine or nicotine. It'll wake them up. Depressants, it'll make the person sleepy. It acts on the nervous system. As you can see, they come in many different shapes. The reason they're prescribed is because they're super powerful medicines or drugs. And unfortunately, in our county, we are having a huge issue with certain teenagers, not the teenagers that abuse prescription drugs, they're abusing Xanax. Okay. Sometimes teenagers will refer to Xanax as bars or footballs because of the shape, or Xannies. Okay. Prescription stimulants like Adderall, sometimes, whether it's in high school or in colleges, when students have midterms or finals and they have to stay awake to study, they will illegally take prescription stimulants like Adderall to stay awake, which they think it'll help them study even more. So, and I've met in schools, when I see young adults, I'll start talking, because I'm 40. So I was in college many years ago. So I'll ask them, hey, are they still using Adderall on campus? And a lot of them will say yes, during midterms and finals. So be aware of that. And then painkillers. Another huge issue that we're having, especially here in Orange County, is a lot of counterfeit pills that are mixed with fentanyl. Fentanyl, it's another painkiller, and it's 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. So if I were to take a pencil and scoop a little bit of fentanyl, that's enough to overdose an adult person. There was a video of a police officer that opened up, they stopped the car, they opened up the trunk, and dust of fentanyl, he breathed it in, and he overdosed, and his partner had to use naloxone to revive him. Touching fentanyl and with the skin, the fentanyl can also get absorbed through the skin, and it can harm a person. Okay. This, we haven't seen, or we don't hear this more, but in the past, there were these teenagers would have a party called like Skittle Parties, where if you were invited, you had to bring some kind of pill or medicine. And when you enter the party, somebody had a jar and you would drop the pills into the jar. Once everybody that was invited was home or at the party, a person would mix up the jar, and then they would go around to every guest, okay, reach in and grab a pill and take it and we'll see what happens. And in the past, I don't, like I said, I don't hear about this much, but it did happen like maybe 5 years ago or further back. So these medicines, I don't want to scare anybody, and you shouldn't be scared. If a doctor recommends it to you, your family members, they help. Just take them at the recommended amount that the doctor tells you, or tells the child, or what have you, right? Don't take too much. If it's prescribed to you, never, never, never share it with another person. Oh, we have the same symptoms here. Take this medicine. The doctor recommended it to me. Don't ever share a prescription. If people are caught with a prescription drug that doesn't belong to them, they can get in trouble with the authorities. Okay, just because they're legal doesn't mean they're not harmful. People can get arrested, things like that. Okay. But once again, please, 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 if you're recommended any of these drugs, take them how they're supposed to. Be safe, be smart, and we'll be fine. We'll all be fine. All right. This is more for you to reflect. What's one of the things that surprised you the most about the trends that we just discussed? My goal is to never scare anybody. My goal is to inform the community, inform the parents. That way we can learn and then share the correct facts with our children, the correct risk, okay? And like I said earlier, prevention starts with you. What you say to your kids is very meaningful. It'll be very powerful, and you'll help your kids not get involved in drugs and alcohol. All right, so protective factors. So what can we as parents do to fight all these risk factors? Because some of these risk factors we cannot eliminate, right? So what can we do? First and foremost, remind your kids of making good decisions. You got to make good decisions. You got to make good. If somebody tells you this, think about your decision, think about your choice before you act. We don't have to do it on a daily basis, but just remind your children, because once again, the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. Have clear expectations. Share them with your child. For example, I don't smoke, I don't use marijuana. I do drink alcohol on occasion, right? So with my kids, they clearly understand from me that since I don't smoke, I don't want them to smoke, I don't want them to vape, ever. Now, I do drink a beer every now and then, or wine or whatever, so I cannot be a hypocrite and say never drink alcohol. So now the expectation kind of changes there, right? So I tell my children, I expect you not to drink alcohol until you're 21. Once you turn 21, that'll be your choice because the law says that, and that's the law, right? If I did vape, I would do the same thing. If I use cannabis, it would be the same thing. Even though I use cannabis, you should not vape or use cannabis or drink alcohol until you're 21. Because your brain is still developing, so you want to take care of your health, your body, and your developing brain, right? If we give children explanations like that, they will listen to us even more and they will understand even more, okay? So it's all about explaining, giving the facts to your children. Setting goals. A ton of research shows that children that have goals and achieve their goals, when they achieve their goals, they develop a higher self-esteem, which is great for them. Kids with goals focus on their goals, and they will not let things like drugs and alcohol get in the way. And these goals can be anything that you and your child want. If you have a little kid, your goal is to tie your shoes. If you have a teenager, your goal is to learn how to drive. All of your kids' goals should be to get good grades at school, right? To graduate high school, to go to college, right? Those kind of goals. And if you want, a goal should be to stay drug-free, right? To not use any of these substances, things like that, because once again, it's gonna affect your health, your brain development. Stress management. Teaching your kids how to reduce their own stress. Little kids as young as 2 years old or even younger, babies, research shows that they do get stressed. The stress does not manifest the same way as an adult, right? In a child, they might manifest stress by misbehaving, being distracted, right? Things like that. So we gotta teach our kids how to reduce their stress, whether it's exercise, listening to music, going for a walk, deep breathing. Deep breathing is one of the best things you can do to help you reduce your stress, okay? Like meditation. Anywhere between, when you first start out, up to 2 minutes, 3 minutes, the goal is to get up to 10 minutes. And that helps reduce the stress. And even if when we do it when we're not stressed, it also improves our memory, it improves our mood. So even for us as adults, deep breathing has a lot of benefits. And you can look at YouTube videos that'll teach you how to do it. Emotional awareness. We as parents, once again, have to teach our children that all emotions are okay, including emotions like anger, sadness, being shy, depression, anxiety, stress. You know, all these emotions are okay. People around the world feel these emotions, but let me show you healthy ways of dealing with these emotions, okay? Refusal skills, this is just talking to your children and teaching them how to say no to drugs, or teaching them a plan. What can they do in the event they walk into the school restroom and somebody's vaping in the restroom? What should they do? Well, what can they say if they're offered? Things like that, okay? Extracurricular activities. These are anything, whether it's inside the school or outside the school, a sport like basketball, soccer, baseball, a martial art like taekwondo, karate, or boxing, an art like dancing, music, playing a musical instrument, singing, painting, drawing. All these activities have shown for kids, it boosts their self-esteem, it reduces stress, they have higher self-esteem, I don't know if I said that already, and they have more success in school, and they don't use drugs. They don't use drugs, all right? They tend not to use drugs. Family meals, sorry, once again, experts and the research shows that children that have family meals have a stronger bond with their parents. Once again, do not use drugs, higher self-esteem, more success in school, and tend to be less stressed. Okay, so I know we're all busy. As your kids get older, they're going to be busy with their school projects, but we have to try to have, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, together as a family. And when we eat together as a family, please make it a positive time. Don't use family meals to scold at your child or yell at your child, because my parents did that. Have you done the homework? No. When you're done eating, you gotta go do your homework. Have you showered? No. You smell when you're done eating, go shower. Have you cleaned your room? No, go clean your room. And what happens if we yell at our kids during family meals? The next time, you're gonna be yelling like 20 times for them to come to the dinner table. If they come to the dinner table, they're either gonna have their earphones on or they're gonna be on their devices. Okay, because they already know, when I sit down to eat, I'm gonna get yelled at. So don't use family meals. Family rules, spending individual time with your children. I'm gonna skip down to this one, positive affirmations. This just means that when your child does something positive, whether it's at school, at home, or wherever, we as parents have to acknowledge and recognize it right away. Because if your kid gets good grades and you say things like, I love your grades, great job, you're a hard worker, I'm really proud of you, your child's self-esteem is gonna go up, they're gonna get motivated, and they're gonna repeat those positive behaviors for you more often in the future, all right? So lastly, we're almost done here, so thank you all very much. Communicate clearly with what the risks are of drugs and alcohol with your child. Do not assume that they've already know the risk. Maybe they've already learned at school, which is great, but it'll be more impactful if they hear the information coming from you as well, okay? It makes a bigger impact. Use teachable moments. This means if you're watching the news or a situation comes up of drugs and alcohol, use that moment to, you see, look at that. Alcohol was involved. That's why people should not drink and drive, things like that. Use it to continue to talk about this topic with your child. Because if you have children in junior high and high school, I guarantee you that your child already knows about vaping and marijuana. Not because they're using, but because they're already seeing it maybe at school, their friends, maybe a family member, at a park, in their community, by their neighborhoods, by their apartment complexes. They're already seeing it, okay? I'll skip this. Evidence, hopefully not, but what if one of your child is using drugs, or not only your child, but a family member is using drugs? So what should you do? First and foremost, look for evidence. I showed you how small these electronic cigarettes are. You gotta dig through things, backpacks, rooms, cars, look for evidence. Look for physical changes. For example, for some people, when they use cannabis or marijuana, their eyes will get red. So that's a sign that they might be using marijuana. When people vape or smoke, whether it's marijuana or cigarettes, obviously the smoke and the aerosol will cause the throat to get dry. So it'll cause throat issues or even lung issues, right? The family member was always healthy. All of a sudden, taking them to the doctors every month for lung issues, that's a possible sign they might be using vaping or smoking. Pay attention to changes in mood, motivation, eating and sleeping patterns as well. Pay attention. So if the child's sleeping at 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning and waking up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's not a normal sleeping pattern. Something's going on, we got to investigate. Isolation from the family, less honesty, a decline in the school grades and school performance. That's a big giveaway that a child might be using drugs and alcohol. And we got to get involved, start investigating, okay, as parents. Communicate with the school. So what I would recommend to you, if you just, once again, hopefully not, but if you ever discover that one of your children is using drugs and alcohol, the first place I would go to get help would be the school. Because fortunately, today, a majority of districts and schools have therapists, psychologists, resource centers, clinicians, people in the district that are here to help not only the child, but the family, okay? And if the district, the school cannot help, the school can give you resources where you can go in the community and get help, once again, for the family, either at low cost or sometimes free, okay? Don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed to come to the school. You're doing it for the well-being of the child. So please, please, hopefully it's never happening to any of you, but if it does, come to the school to ask, get help, okay? That should be the first place. So use what you learned today, spread the word, communicate with, talk with your children. Other than that, that's it. I will provide this for the district. It's a link, it's a Google folder. I have a folder in Korean, Vietnamese, Spanish, and English. This presentation that I showed you will be in there, so you can download it. This district can also share it with you if you'd like. It has guides, it has brochures on the risk of marijuana and vaping and alcohol for young people. So all this information so you can learn and give the facts to your children, okay? Questions? There's my email. There's my phone number. If you're too shy to ask your questions in front of everybody, you send me an email, send me a phone, leave me a voicemail, and I'll try to reply to you as quickly as I can. You can take a screenshot if you'd like. Sorry for the people that are at home, but for the people that are here, I have electronic cigarettes. If you'd like to come up and take pictures, you're more than welcome. That's okay. Sure, online question. Okay, so they're asking, how can we identify the marijuana edibles? You really can't. Unless they still come in the little baggie, you'll be able to see the label that it says marijuana, what have you. But once it's taken out of the bag, you can't really tell whether it's an edible or a regular cookie. And that's a huge risk. Yes. ¿Es fentanilo? What is fentanyl? ¿O qué es fentanilo? Fentanyl is a synthetic drug, una droga sintética. Y como es sintética, cualquier persona que tiene los ingredientes lo puede producir. So pretty much fentanyl is a synthetic drug, a synthetic opioid. So anybody that can get a hold of the ingredients can manufacture it. So in our county, there's a lot of illegal street fentanyl. En nuestro condado hay mucho fentanilo que es fabricado pues por gente que no tiene los permisos o lo que sea, y es fentanyl callejera pues por decir. Sí, de nada. Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, so the mom is asking, why don't we teach this? Why isn't this taught to the students, like junior high and high school, like they do sex ed, right? Sometimes like this week is Red Ribbon Week, So students are sometimes on campus, they will do activities to bring awareness. For your district, I don't know what the policy is. In junior high. Okay, en las clases de educación física, así les platican sobre este tema de los riesgos. So in PE class, thank you. I'm actually, with the help of Dr. Lai, I'm trying to get into the elementary schools with my program with the Orange County Department of Ed and work with 4th and 5th graders. So I'm currently trying to work with principals to see if they'll have our program, which is a free program, so we can start working with students, not so much showing the drugs. With students, we work more on learning how to manage your stress, learning how to make good decisions, working on self-esteem, communication, because if they have these skills and they have high confidence, they will not use drugs. And that's the goal, like motivating them to make healthy choices, positive choices. Entonces, ¿quiere que se lo repita en español? Sí, sí, ok, gracias. Yes. Okay, well, there was a survey, but I think my boss got a hold of the results. It was a survey by the CDC, and they actually showed, well, the vaping numbers among teenagers is really high, but from 2019 to 2020 and now to 2021, the numbers of vaping have actually gone down, which is a good sign, but the numbers are still high. So we want to bring them down super, super low. But that's what we thought, that the pandemic, it was going to increase the numbers. But for our county, as far as the California Healthy Kids Survey, it'll probably be administered in the spring of 2022, which means we won't get the results maybe until late 2022 or early 2023. But we'll see what happens. We're curious because if this survey says that the numbers are going down, we're hoping that's the same thing for our state and for our county and our districts. But once again, yes, the vaping numbers are high among teens, but they're showing a slow decline. Anybody else? Yes. Okay, so the dad here is asking that, yes, it's done in the P's, but why isn't it done at every single school? En todo el nivel, prepa, secundaria, primaria, yeah. Okay, so yeah, but he's asking why isn't it done at the elementary or even the high schools? Oh, okay. Sí, entonces, ese ya es un distrito diferente comparado a las preparatorias, a las high schools. Sí, pero eso yo no puedo, yo soy como el departamento y yo no puedo hablar por cada uno de los distritos, entonces ya sería, depende de cada distrito. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Entonces si están buscando, investigando por un programa para el 6º grado. Okay. Anybody else? ¿Alguna otra pregunta? Anybody? Yes. Sí. Yeah, so she's pointing out how, and which is true, there are cases where children as young as elementary are now coming across vapes and marijuana. Y sí tiene razón. Y sí me ha pasado en otras escuelas que los niños del 4º y 5º grado traen la sustancia a la escuela. So I personally have come across principals and schools where they show that children 4th and 5th grade, they will bring substances onto the campus. Because they get it from the family, lo agarran de la familia, entonces se lo traen a la escuela. They bring it to school because they get it from the family. Anybody else? No. Before you leave, I know I'm asking a lot. It's already late, and I apologize. But I have a quick survey. I have a survey in Spanish, Vietnamese, or Korean, or English. If you have like maybe 5 minutes to fill it out for me, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it.